And here is the Writer's Almanac for Friday, November the 19th, 2021. It's the birthday of the poet Sharon Olds, born in San Francisco, 1942, author of more than 10 books of poetry. Sharon Olds, who said, "Whenever we give our pen some free will, we may surprise ourselves. All that wanting to seem normal in regular life, all that fitting in, falls away in the face of one's own strange self on the page." It's the anniversary of the National Women's Christian Temperance Union in 1874, whose members would march into saloons, sing hymns, pray, and ask the barkeepers to please stop selling liquor. It was on this date, 1861, Mrs. Julia Ward Howe sat down in Washington and wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And it's the birthday of the 20th President of the United States, James Garfield, born in Orange, Ohio, 1831. He taught classics at Western Reserve Institute in Hiram, Ohio, and as a parlor trick, he could hold a pen in each hand and simultaneously write in Latin and Greek. Elected president in 1880, and a few months after he took office, he was fatally shot by a deranged gunman in the railroad station in Washington, D.C. And it was on this day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, 4.5 months after the terrible battle on a foggy, cold morning. The president arrived about 10 o'clock. Around noon, the sun came out. The crowds were gathered on a hill overlooking the battlefield. A band played. A local preacher gave a long prayer. And the headline orator, Edward Everett, spoke for more than 2 hours, describing the battle in great detail, bringing the audience to tears more than once. And when he was finished, the president stood up and spoke. His speech, just over 2 minutes long, less than 300 words, only 10 sentences. So brief, in fact, that many of the 15,000 people who were there didn't even realize that he had spoken because a photographer setting up his camera distracted them. But the next day, Edward Everett told Lincoln, "I wish that I could flatter myself that I had come as near to the central idea of the occasion in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes." 5 different manuscript copies of the Gettysburg Address remain, all of them slightly different. One copy was signed and dated by Lincoln, and that is the one accepted as the official version. Here's our poem for today, the second half of the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Said Abraham Lincoln on this day in 1863. That's the Writer's Almanac for Friday, November the 19th. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.